everyone, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to present in this Global South Academic Conclave. Today, I will be presenting on digital transformation of urban sanitation governance and how we had a study conducted for implementing open source platforms, which is called the Integrated Municipal Information System, or IMIS as we call it, in the one of the secondary towns of Bangladesh, Lakshmipur municipality. My name is Makfie Farah. I work at the Global Water and Sanitation Center of the Asian Institute of Technology, Thailand. So I'll try to adjust with the time with my presentation. So I'll start with the context. We all know about the Sustainable Development Goal that targets for adequate and equitable sanitation and hygiene, but the urban context of Bangladesh shows that more than 65% of the urban population does not have access to safely managed sanitation, and this is due to the persistent structural barriers which also been grappled with fragmented data, manual workflows, and weak institutional capacity for planning and also executing. And as we also know that Bangladesh is one of the highest climate risk areas in the world, and due to flooding and other weather events, the sanitation services are disrupted. That also widens the inequalities, especially in the small towns and also among the LICs of the low-income communities, as we call them. So why these digital public infrastructure we are promoting for meeting the challenges? Because we want to transform this more reactive and manual system to a more proactive and data-driven governance, and that we believe will be enabling this integrated data with a more efficient service delivery, and also that will ensure transparency and long-term resilience for the sanitation services. So let's have a look at the municipality that we are dealing with. It has more than 130,000 population. It is not a very big area, as we can see it, and there are low-income communities, and you can also see I have put some data on its buildings, like it has exactly 25,095 buildings, where there are a number of residential buildings, industrial and all, and this is just a small glimpse of the survey that we did, and we will show you how we started all these activities. Unfortunately, when we applied for this conclave, the paper, the whole platform was not ready, so I will not be showing you the platform, rather how the IMS system will be supporting the municipality in the urban context. And if we look at the municipality's service context, we can see that it has a FSM chain, but it is not complete. It has data and asset gaps, and also there is a engagement barrier. That means the citizens are not properly engaged, or they have no say in the sanitation activity other than just taking a menial service. And how these problems are persistent over there, because the city, if you see, they are doing this sanitation service for more than 15 years with a functional FSTP, which is small but is still functional, but everything is manual and paper based with very limited visibility and the service gaps. And as I say, the financial capacity of the city is also very small, and you can see I haven't put any baseline indicators, though we have that. But as before our study, there were fragmented data and not reliable data. Even the Purosabha, they had several documents that shows, okay, I have, like for example, when we went to the study, we asked for a baseline. They said, okay, we have like 30,000 households, but our study, which is blanket, that shows it's 25,000. There's a huge gap, 5,000. So that's why I didn't put. But after our study is done and our platform is ready, now we can see that there will be this data that is coming up, and the city will be able to use it. And how we are doing all these activities, we are doing it with the IMIS, as I have already mentioned. This is an open source based GIS based digital public infrastructure that works both as a municipal information system and also as a software solution, integrating data, processes and services to enhance municipal governance, particularly in the sanitation management, while it considered the citywide inclusive sanitation approach. It has 10 functional modules. Apart from the sanitation module, it has also building information management, property tax collections management support system, urban management decision support system, utility information system that covers the roads, water supplies, so even the sewerage and drainage network, and also solid waste information and water supply system. Currently, we are working solely focusing on the fecal sludge management system of the municipality, but these other modules are also integrated part and can be also activated once it starts. If you want to know more in detail the technicalities of the IMIs, there is a website given, so you can visit, and it is also available in the GitHub, and as it is in public domain, so you can also have information on the IMIs. And how IMIs works as an open source GIS integrated API. It has a unified interface. We start with the GIS based survey, so the entire city is covered with the GIS data, and we can pinpoint several layers while applying the IMIs data. It has a visual dashboard, and it has an interoperability system and architecture, modular scope, and also it has, as I already mentioned, it is open source stack. The system architecture and module, how it goes, more like most of the platforms, it has a web admin portal, it has a mobile field app. The citizen interface is currently under construction, so it will also be available soon, and it has a several logic functions, but I'm just focusing on the fecal. We are currently focusing only on the fecal sludge management for Lakhimpur city, and as I said, the IMIs also has the technical ability to connect through APIs with rest of the services. For example, we are currently connecting it with the National Sanitation Dashboard of Bangladesh, which is currently very much operational, but the dashboard, we are also connecting the IMIs of Lakhimpur with the national dashboard. And how do we work? We have co-designed. It's not like this platform it is a base platform, so there is basic, but we have contextualized this whole platform in consultation with the stakeholders. For example, the Department of Public Health Engineering, because we are supporting this whole project under a flatline project of Bangladesh, that is the flagship project of Bangladesh, that is we call the strengthening of public data system for sanitation. So we are working with the Department of Public Health Engineering, the municipality, and other stakeholders who are working in the field level or also at the technical backend. Then we did the baseline and configured the parameters, which tools to be used, and then did the household survey and trained the municipality officials. We trained the enumerators, and we have a project budget. I'm not disclosing this, but it was a budget around more than I would say 40 lakhs in Bangladesh taka, and then we have trained the municipality staff on how to use these IMIs. We have oriented, and currently we are doing trial run. The municipality people are doing it by themselves. We are giving them the backend support so that they can use it. So we are doing the handholding support remotely, because one of our observation was that if you give too much handholding support, then the municipality ownership doesn't grow. So this, as part of the study findings, we have also done it. Just to make sure, I am audible, right? Yeah, okay, thank you. So let's see. If you see, we have surveyed more than 24,000 data. We have used 30 centimeter satellite imagery resolution and used the margin map, and you see there are several stages where we did the data collection, we did the data clarification, and we had a central verification system where a team of experts worked together and did the cross-checking, and not only once, we did it twice with our data partners, so that there is minimum data gap. But there were several challenges during this whole data collection process, because it sounds like, okay, it's a survey, we are doing it, but during that we had a flood in Lakhimpur, and the flood was, Bangladesh is a country of floods, but that area, this flood was very unusual. That happened like in not in 20 years, this type of flood, and we had to wait for we started with the enumerators training, then we had to stop for the whole study because the entire city was flooded, and for 2 months there were water logging in several LIC areas. So we couldn't do proper survey for 2 months, and that actually hampered a lot and also showed us the necessity of proper data, because due to lack of data there are several service requests, and due to this water logging the municipality couldn't provide the service properly because they didn't know what to do. But after the data, we have told them that if you have the data, if you know the road accessibility, you can utilize it and provide the service. So we hope by using the IMIS data, they will now be doing it. So this is the IMIS dashboard.
Hi, Makfie.
Right now because
Hello. Hi, Makfie. I would request you to conclude quickly so that you have time for some questions also.
Yeah, I'll just take 2 more minutes.
Okay.
So this is a glimpse of the dashboard. So we have some key outputs. Currently, it has helped the municipality to reduce their processing time, and some of the facts I have already told. Okay, I'm not going in detail, but what we have learned that yes, IMIS is a very useful tool in aligning with the CWAS, and also that we have seen that in doing this type of survey or study or implementing this type of platform, the sustained commitment from the political institutional ownership is essential. Localized capacity building is a must, and the e-governance integration, we need to build capacity of the cities, that why do they need the e-governance. This is where there is a lack of capacity building, and currently as part of the IMIS we are also doing some extra activities, like we are connecting with open payment, public portals, and connecting it with the national dashboard. And what our path ahead, as you can see, we are currently focusing on the scaling up of the activities in other cities to DPHE projects, and also we are planning to have projects for the capacity building, because different tiers need the capacity building to optimize the use of this type of platforms. So, and I am also thankful to my co-authors with whom we have developed this study and completed the whole study. And I also like to thank the Global South Academic Conclave for giving me the opportunity to present our study findings. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Makfie. If you are okay, we can do one question at this point.
Yeah. Hi, Makfie. Vivek this side. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah. So, a little question regarding this, because this is something also what we are experiencing and trying to do in India. And this is happening, this has already happened at a national level, after which this SBM was driven, through which SBM was driven. So I wanted to know from your side, since this data is collected from ground and there's a lot of workforce who is collecting this data, what mechanism do you have to ensure that the authenticity of data is maintained and it is exactly as per the standards and norms?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we have several tiers actually. It's not like that one single survey. First of all, we ensure that the city authority, they are also engaged, especially the conservancy section. They are engaged, and when that data comes, we have random checking, because we get the mobile numbers of the houses when we collect data. This is a very sensitive data, but we don't make it public, but we have access to the mobile numbers. We randomly check with the same questionnaire. We go physically again, this is one way, and then we do a mobile checking, and then there is this secondary tier where when we enter the data in the IMIS, there are logics. There are logics and set of questions that if this mismatches the data, then we can go back. So data cleaning actually takes several times, and for data cleaning and authentication, it takes around, we do it parallelly, but I would say it takes around 2 months to make sure that the data are correct in their, like how we want to see it. But still, I would say no survey is 100% authentic. So say currently, for example, recently this happened, the municipality went for a service using the IMIS, as I have already said, they are using it by themselves. So they went there and the house is demolished. But as the house is being demolished, the containment is full and they need to clean it. And then now the data needs to be updated because now the ownership changed, the whole area changed and all. So this type of changes we are currently facing, and we are asking the Purasabha to make the changes by themselves because we have trained them. So now they are doing. So this type of changes, maybe there will be, as I also said, during the data collection there were several floods and many people were not at the home. So the enumerators couldn't take data. So we have already informed the municipality about those areas, pinpointing the houses that okay, there might be data discrepancy. So during service request, you have to correct this data. Yeah.
Thank you, Makfie. We will take more questions at the end. Now we'll move to the second presentation. And we'll request you to stay around on the panel. Towards the end, we can have more questions. Our second presentation is by Agyei Darko Kelvin. Is he online? And I hope I have said your name correctly.
Yeah, I'm
Hi.
here.
Hi.
Yeah.
So,
Good afternoon.
Agyei's presentation is on designing climate-resilient urban waterscapes, hydrological adaptation for equitable cities in a warming world. He is from the Regional Water and Environmental Sanitation Center from Kumasi. And I think we can go ahead with your presentation. We can start.
Okay, thank you. Just as Karen said, I am Agyei Darko Kelvin, so I will go on to share my screen. Yeah. Please, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
You'll need to put it on full screen.
Is that?
No, it's not on full screen. It's not on a slideshow mode.
Hello, sorry, can you come again?
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, so we can see your presentation, but it's in editing mode, not in slideshow mode.
Okay. How do I change this?
Can you press the button at the bottom? So the one near the slider, next to the slider. If you can press, or F5.
Okay.
Function plus F5.
Is it better now?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you once again for the opportunity to talk about our research on designing climate resilient urban waterscapes, a hydrological framework for equitable cities in a warming world. This research has basically been a work for some months, moving into a year, to find the sweet spot between what happens when there is hydrological situations and then there climate change. So how do cities adapt? How are cities adapting within that factors of hydrology and then climate change? So I'll go on and so in the sub-Saharan Africa is undergoing a rapid demographic shift, and with that, over 60% of their population is projected to live in the cities by 2050. The urbanization, that is how people are moving into the urban areas, coincides with a changing climate regime, which is characterized by a higher intensity of rainfall and then longer droughts. Now, what happens is within that context of urbanization and then rapid urbanization and then climate change is what happens in the engineering world, where we would predict based on circumstances and scenarios and provide the infrastructure. But what is happening right now is that conventional situation of predict and provide is failing the poor communities or the peri-urban communities. Now, this study moves beyond the technical engineering assessment and then examine how the marginalized residents adapt to these failures and propose a framework that integrates this adaptation into formal planning. Now, what is actually happening is in the contemporary African urban waterscape is a hybrid system where piped networks coexist with decentralized, often most of the times it is informal distribution mechanisms. This hybrid system is critical because informal systems are not merely transitional, but they are constitutive in the sense that just as what is happening in a world where there are municipal distribution systems of water, and then it gets to certain parts of the cities where these distribution systems don't get to them, they tend to find a way to provide water for themselves, and that is what is happening in these instances. These adaptation techniques by the residents of cities who don't have access to the municipal distribution system is what is termed as the informal. So right now, but what happens is most of the times, these informal systems are termed as transitional, as in some years it will move into a better system where probably they would also find refuge in getting the distribution systems. In the infrastructure gap that exists, when we did the study, the hybrid system is defined by exclusion. Most of these systems don't have the access to the water. Now, when we did the spatial analysis, we saw that the average cities or pipe access to the cities is around 38%. This drops in the situations where we move into the sections of the cities that have no access to piped water systems. Now, when you overlay the map of flooded sections of the city onto the administrative map of the city, you realize that the map is coinciding with, the flood map is coinciding with most of the sections of the city that are poor or have less, let me say, settlement issues, or they have most of them have settlement issues in the sense that they are not well-to-do in those areas. And that is why we feel we should place them in a proper context of getting, not them only getting access to water provided by themselves, but the country or each one that is involved should try as much as possible in helping to minimize this injustice that is going on. Between 2015 and 2024, we have observed that there has been a drastic reduce of permeability in our surfaces when it comes to these cities because of urbanization. Because of urbanization, everywhere in our cities is being paved. This results in the situation where there is a lot of impermeable surfaces, which one, we are not getting a lot of water being permeated into the grounds to recharge our groundwaters. This surface hardening has reduced the natural infiltration capacity of the catchment by approximately 44%. The result is a significant increase in surface runoff and pluvial flood risk during the intensified rainfall events associated with climate change. This seasonal adaptation has brought about a certain level of agency on the part of inhabitants of these communities or these cities where they don't have access to municipal water distribution systems, because they have to find a way to navigate the risk. Now we observe that in these situations, they find source of water in sachet water. Some find them in the piped distribution systems. Some have to drill boreholes for themselves. Some resort to collecting rainwater, and then some use the water bowsers. Now, in these instances, you realize that during dry season and wet season, there are shifts. These shifts occur because of the availability of free water at that particular point. Now, when you check this graph, you will realize that in the dry season for sachet water, the demand is high because you would have to resort to that avenue due to less of the other options. This and then same thing happens in the subsequent options that are there. Now, we realize that there is a hidden cost when it comes to all these seasonal adaptation that these communities resort to. We have public health risk, and then we have reliance on the boreholes that is resulting in a lot of over depletion of our groundwater resources. And as a government, or as people who are interested in what happens in the water space, we would have to find that spot where we would talk about how to produce or how to provide water for these communities. Ooh, I just realized my time is up. Let me talk about the framework and then conclude. In our proposition, we talk about a certain framework where it connects three things. We connect nature, we connect people, and then we connect institutions. These instances are not standalone instances. They are avenues where if we combine them and then work along with these propositions, it makes water distribution something of importance, and then ensure equitable access. We reclaim natural hydrology, where we ensure that most of the surfaces that have been paved, we would find a way to provide permeable surfaces for natural hydrology to occur. We would hybridize governance in the sense that we would democratize some of these institutions to ensure that people get access to the water. We would have to center lived experiences. Sometimes these communities are left to fend for themselves in their provision of water. What this framework talks about is we should try as much as possible to bring them on board. Now, what engineering does is it always predict and then provide. What this framework is proposing is that we should rather adapt to the circumstances that have rendered these communities in, so that they can also enjoy what it means to have continuous flowing water. This is also just to measure the equity first in the framework model. Okay, the proposed transitioning from ad hoc adaptation to formal integration via community water quality
Agyei,
certifications. This is done by equipping
Agyei,
residents with
hello.
simple testing kits and mobile reporting tools. The agency already evident in sourcing water is redirected toward quality assurance.
Hi, Agyei.
then-
I'm going to request you to conclude very quickly.
Sure.
Yeah.
So in concluding, in Kumasi, technical solutions that ignore social equity are hydrologically inefficient. The equity first model demonstrates that prioritizing the vulnerable enhances resilience for the entire city. True climate resilience requires reframing urban hydrology. It is not about moving water, but about redistributing power and legitimizing the local knowledge of those who have been adapting to the crisis for decades. And this would help us to design systems where the technical and governance structures adapt to the lived realities of the poor, rather than forcing the poor to adapt to failing systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Agyei, and I request you to please stay on the panel, and we'll take any questions if there are any from the audience towards the end. And next, I think we'll move on to the next presentation. The next presentation is by Uzra Sultana. Her presentation title is Grey Water Management and Reuse Potential in Selected 5 States of Rural India. While Uzra has been working with ARGHYAM for a long time, she has nearly 18 years of professional experience across environmental research, climate change, and WASH. And I request you to please start your presentation.
Hi, can you hear? Audible? Hello? Yeah, this is better. Good evening, everyone. Before I start, introducing myself, I'm Uzra Sultana. I work with ARGHYAM in Bangalore. ARGHYAM basically is an organization which works on safe and sustainable water using digital technology, and we are DPI partners for JJM. We also work in source sustainability, water quality, and O&M of JJM schemes. Under source sustainability, we have 3 themes, sub-themes. One is replenish, which is recharging water. The second is reuse, which is the demand management. And the third one is reuse, which is grey water management. And that's exactly what I'm sharing my findings with you all today. Just a brief introduction about the work itself. ARGHYAM started its journey in grey water just a little more than a year ago. When we were strategizing and decided that we will stay on source sustainability, we identified that yes, if we need to work on JJM, we need to definitely work on grey water. And our journey began with the grey water study. As ARGHYAM had no much field experience on grey water, we decided that we will study the current practices on grey water management and its reuse potential for two things. One is on irrigation and other is on groundwater recharge. And both needs very standardized quality before they are reused or recharged. Okay, as I mentioned, the grey water study has been focusing on understanding what are the different treatment technologies that the rural India has used. So now we are actually moving from urban. From morning we have been hearing about urban. Today, now we are actually looking into the treatment technology and how grey water is being managed in rural context. And to do that, we have studied 5 states. I will come to that later. But before that, why did we even do this? As ARGHYAM is now working to support JJM, we wanted to see if the promise of JJM, which is providing 55 LPCD to all the rural households by 2024, which is 2026, what will be the estimated grey water that gets generated? And we know that it's 34,000 MLD per day of grey water that gets generated, the whole India, of which 60 to 70%, if it is converted into reusable, treated and reusable, then we have 17,000 MLD which can be utilized. And that's the quantum of grey water that we have to see it as a resource and we have to reuse it or we have to recharge it. Why do we have to reuse it? We all know that agriculture, for irrigation purpose, the agriculture sector is extracting a lot of groundwater and there is a lot of pressure on depletion of groundwater, right? To save those resources, this grey water can be a useful resource and it can be replaced. Yes, the quantum of extraction cannot match with this 17,000 MLD alone, but there can be a replacement of this water, grey water. Yeah, we all know that grey water is nutrient rich, but if it is not treated well, then it can cause not just health hazard, but also we have seen in our study that it also hinders education and livelihood. There has been days where the schools are kept closed because there was flooding due to over grey water explosion within the village and also due to heavy rainfall. So both the disasters combined, there has been impact on school and livelihood as well, and it's not just health alone anymore. And this is the situation in the villages which has no treatment facility at all. Here are the, just a brief discussion on the selection criteria. For the study, we had chosen 5 states, and for a reason that the states that were chosen were diverse in hydrogeological parameters. They were water stressed. The JJM were in a good completion state, and it was arid zones. Also, Punjab, Haryana being water-intensive crop growers. The selection of villages from these states were done in consultation with the government departments, where the JJM status is progressing very well or have completed its 100% FHTC to every household, and also to understand what are the best practices, different technologies, understand the capacities of the GP to plan, implement, and also in future do the O&M on their own. So what was the methodology? Methodology, before we started, as I had mentioned, that ARGHYAM was very new to grey water management. To understand the context, challenges, the treatment technologies and how they work, how they plan, who implements it, what's the funding, we wanted to understand from the experts first. We did a consultation with organizations like CDD, WASHI, WaterAid, Brahmal Foundation, UNICEF, Aga Khan Foundation, hashtag per capita, and also WaterSafe. Besides this, once we chose our states for the study, we also consulted with the head of the SBM Grameen 2.0 implementing organization, with the state officials, district officials, block officials, tried to understand what are the challenges that they are facing, what are the roles and responsibilities that they manage, and also at the GP level and at the community institutions like village and sanitation, water and sanitation committees, VWSCs that famously they're called as, how do they manage to plan, implement, or are there any capacity building activities provided? Oh my God, it's already 3 minutes, is it? Okay. Yeah, I'll be very quick. So we chose villages with and without treatment facilities. Technical, financial, operational aspects were looked into detail. And secondary data was Jal Jeevan Mission, SBM Grameen, Manrega, 15 Finance, and also Mission Antyodaya. They have a detailed numbers on population and other details. So in nutshell, I think it's very clear on the slide. We had 20 FGDs, 80 elected members interacted, 22 officials interacted over a span of 45 plus days. This is the nutshell of our assumptions and the calculations or estimations that we have done on the grey water generation and for reuse and recharge. The 5 states, so basically I'll just come to the key messages. We cannot see every state or village the same way because it definitely differs with the hydrogeology, population, the way it is being managed within the village itself, whether there is a segregation of pipelines, stormwater separate, grey water separate, black water separate, and so on. And also the climatic conditions of every state is very different. So how do we see that each state, we cannot basically, standardize. And yes, of course, there is a lot of water being generated, grey water being generated, the volume is huge, and how can we tap it? After treatment, how do we reuse it? And also the point that here it comes is that it's not just the water supply norm that we have to follow while we are estimating the total quantum of grey water. It is also the open wells or bore wells, and also the other aspects like rainfall and so on. So this is the nutshell. I'm just giving you one example for Karnataka. This is how the overall grey water is being spread into. I will not get into the details. I'll skip this, but one message from this slide is that from one village in Punjab, we have seen that there is a 3 lakh litre per day of wastewater, grey water, that's get generated and treated. It has been reused in roughly 20 acres of land, which means that 20 acres of land, the population of this village is around 4,000 plus. 3 lakh litres, 20 acres land, so roughly there is 1% of the total land that can get irrigated. So that's the message. So quickly I'm getting into the findings. Just give me 2 minutes, please. Just 2 minutes. I'll quickly rush. Yes, we know that 55 LPCD is the norm, but that's not the standard practice everywhere. In places like Karnataka, Rajasthan, we have seen less than 55 is also supplied. Places like Gujarat, Punjab, Haryana, more than 100, and also more than 150 has been supplied. And the coverage, grey water, is it 100% everywhere? Not really. It's not 100%. So there's sometimes it's only 50%, it's not even the entire village. So how do we see if there is a clustered village level, then we can look into centralized arrangement. If it is scattered population, then individual arrangements like soak pit, leach pit, or any other treatment system can be thought of. Water quality, nowhere I have seen in 20 villages that there is a water quality happening. Only 2 villages, one in Gujarat and one in Karnataka. Only 2 villages I came up that there is a treatment. Though there is no mandate in the guidelines of SBMG to monitor or do the water quality testing, but I think this has to be highly recommended in the upcoming policies. So here no much message to give, but one important thing here is the picture that you see here is from Muttur village in Karnataka. The diversion that you're seeing towards the left is actually the stormwater drain diversion. The key is how do you keep the two separate. The right-hand side pipeline is going towards the treatment plant, which is a DVAT system, and the left-hand side is the stormwater lane. When the heavy rainfall happens, the runoff or the rainwater passes from this diversion route. This puts less pressure on the treatment facility, and it also brings down the low maintenance. So, and the pie chart there, it represents the different treatment technologies that has been covered. Yeah, this is the financial, very important slide. Here what we see is, as per the SBMG Grameen, the funding has been divided in 2 categories. The population, village population with more than 5,000 gets 660, and less than 5,000 gets 280. So this is a challenge for the small villages. When we analyzed it further from Mission Antodaya data, we came across that the bigger villages are just 3%. That is where they are getting the highest support. And that's quite disproportionate and insufficient to run the treatment facility within the village. One more important message coming in here is, doesn't mean that if you have a smaller village, the per capita cost of the plant goes less, right? For example, in Patia village in Gujarat, the population was just 1,000, and the per capita cost came up to 1,500. And in Rajasthan, though the population was 4,400, the cost was just, per capita cost was only 142. So we need to understand why the per capita cost is less. Maybe because the simplified treatment technology might have been adopted. Or, you know, those kind of things is a learning from other states and other models. And the villages visited, there was 3 lakh to 87 lakh range of treatment cost, capital cost. I will not go into more details. I'll quickly rush to, these are some examples on reuse and revenue. I know I'm exceeding, but let me come to the second last slide. So these are the major gaps and challenges. Yes, we all know there has been no water quality testing. Financial constraints, yes, because smaller villages are struggling. They don't even have proper capital cost, forget about the O&M cost. And O&M cost, even for the bigger villages, it has been the weakest link. Poor design integration, yes, this is very, very important. What we have seen in the villages is that even in the guidelines, the treatment technologies are designed as per the population, the size of the population, and the land or the space availability, which isn't enough. We need to also look into the characteristic of wastewater generated. If there is a mixing, if there is an organic load in the wastewater, there needs to be a different technology system, and that's need to be taken care of. Otherwise, what happens is that at the end, the treated wastewater is reused either for irrigation or it goes into the groundwater recharge. It simply pollutes the groundwater table, or the soil gets hardened with application of improper treatment. Limited scalability, again, very complicated designs are being implemented, makes it very difficult to maintain first of all, and also replicate it. Yeah, one size fit for all doesn't work here. What we have also seen is that soak pit is widely used everywhere in India, and what we need to keep in mind is that less than 2 meters of the soak pit cannot have, if the groundwater table is less than 2 meters, we cannot go with soak pit. That's a basic rule that we need to apply, because the soak pit will definitely create the contamination. Limited digital tracking. Yes, when we started, because ARGHYAM is now looking very much into digital technology and using of applications and platforms, web platforms, we did not come across any such platform in grey water management in rural context other than asset mapping alone, which was happening in a pilot mode in Punjab. That was the only digital touch that the grey water management has seen. Yeah, that's it. Just the last slide. These are the recommendations. I will not get into the detail, but yeah, I have already shared most of them. You can just take a look at it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Uzra. That was a very detailed, and I'm sure there are many questions. This is a very hot topic, but please hold on to the questions. We'll take them at the end. We do have 2 more presentations to go, and we have Tsitsi Prudence online. Tsitsi, are you there? Water security. So Karan, do we have the presentation ready?
Okay. Hello, everyone. The original plan. Can you hear me? Hello.
Hello. Hi, Prudence. You are. Can we stop? Can we stop the video, please?
Oh, sorry.
Hi, Prudence. So, would you like us to play the video, or would you like to do the presentation?
Yes, I submitted the video, the presentation I was supposed to do for now.
Okay. Sorry, there is some background noise. If anybody else online is. Hello, can you hear me? So, Prudence, we are going to play your presentation. There is a lot of background noise, and so we'll just start with your presentation.
This is Ms. Tsitsi Prudence Humanikwa and Sanitation based assessment of groundwater storage and vulnerability to water insecurity in Zimbabwe. Okay, water and sanitation hygiene are threatened by climate change, particularly in the global south. So groundwater buffers against climate variability, especially in regions where there is unreliable surface water or even urban areas where there are frequent water cuts. Rapid population growth and uneven spatial development place pressure on these groundwater resources. Therefore, there is a need to understand the dynamics for climate resilient wash planning. In this research, we utilized satellite-based Earth observations to provide a scalable method to track groundwater storage. Our research feeds into the following policies: the Global Sustainable Development Goal number 6, which calls for clean water and sanitation, as well as SDG 13, which is climate action, and it answers to the call of the African Ministers' Council on water for targeted water governance interventions. And the African Union's theme for 2026 was assuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation systems to achieve the continental goal of Agenda 2063. And then the SADC Groundwater Management Institute objectives, revised protocols on shared water resources is also supported by this research, because shared water courses also include transboundary aquifers. And then the National Development Strategy number 2 is striving for equitable, inclusive growth, climate adaptation and evidence-based planning as the nation moves towards its Vision 2030 of becoming an upper middle-income country by 2030. So the objectives of this research were to analyze the trends in groundwater storage in Zimbabwe from the inception of the GRACE mission, which was the source of our groundwater storage data from 2003 to the most recent year of 2025. The other objective was to examine the statistical association between precipitation and groundwater storage to see if climate has got an impact on groundwater storage. And the third objective was to assess the spatial patterns of population pressure and groundwater stress and to combine these two factors to identify the provinces most vulnerable to water insecurity. So the study area is Zimbabwe, which is a landlocked country in southern Africa with disparities in climatic and hydrological conditions and uneven population distribution is shown in Harare and in Bulawayo. Those are the two metropolitan provinces, and they've got a high population density. The eastern side of the country has got a higher population density compared to the western side of the country. So the methodology, we use the CHIPS precipitation data, the 2022 National Census data, which is the most recent data available on the population of Zimbabwe. We capitalized on free open source tools and software, Giovanni, QGIS, and Climate Engine. The analysis that we conducted was linear regression analysis for the relationship between precipitation and groundwater, then bivariate mapping to classify the vulnerability zones. So looking at the trends in groundwater storage and total seasonal precipitation, please note that the rainy season in the southern hemisphere ranges from November to April. So that was the best time to capture the seasonal precipitation. And then for groundwater storage, we looked at the dry season from May to October, soon after the preceding rainy season for that year. So all in all, the precipitation is quite sporadic. Yes, there's great variability, with El Nino bringing about hydrological droughts here and there. But we see a similar trend with the groundwater storage, but there seems to be a decline, which increases the risk of bore failure, which directly impacts wash services. And then looking at the relationship between groundwater storage and precipitation, the multiple R shows that there is a strong association between precipitation and groundwater storage, meaning that climate change has got a strong impact on the groundwater reserves. And then the other two shows that 53% of the variation in groundwater storage can be explained by precipitation. The standard R21 shows, if we incorporate the standard R21, it shows that beyond precipitation, there are other factors which affect groundwater storage. For example, extraction rates and the hydrogeology of the area. Okay, for the provincial groundwater storage, you considered the years 2022 and 2025, which are the most recent, and the average groundwater storage for all the 23 years of 2003 up to 2015. It shows that Harare the eastern side of the country is quite abundant with groundwater, unlike the western side of the country, which most likely going to might most likely have issues with groundwater issues. But then, considering the population density now, we see that Harare and Mashonaland West, Harare may have abundant groundwater resources, but because of the demographic pressure, it is most likely it becomes highly vulnerable to groundwater stress and water insecurity. Mashonaland West, it's got elevated compound stress in that there is moderate population. There is moderate population density and as well as moderate groundwater. So it is most similar to Harare. It is most vulnerable to groundwater insecurities. And then Manicaland is the least vulnerable zone, but Matabeleland North and South, together with Bulawayo, then emerging hydroclimatic stress zone. The limitations of this research were that groundwater storage was derived from satellite proxies, not direct bore measurements, which could have been more accurate. And then, because of the low spatial resolution, intra-provincial variability in groundwater conditions and population pressure could not be fully captured. And there were assumptions that population pressure indicators were constant, and bivariate mapping identifies relative vulnerability, not absolute scarcity water thresholds. So it informs where there is need for urgent water resource planning within a country, but it does not show the absolute water scarcity research thresholds. And then there was limited access to other data on ground abstraction rates, land use and land cover change, which is dynamic, and then also on governance and infrastructure. So recommendations is that Harare and Mashonaland West should be prioritized for integrated groundwater management practices, for example, abstract monitoring. And then the Matabeleland region requires climate resilient groundwater strategies, such as protection of recharge zones. And then population dynamics and satellite groundwater storage anomalies should be integrated into the Sinua resource planning strategies, especially for high-risk provinces, Harare and Mashonaland West, and the governing body should invest in training local WASH officers in GIS to monitor ward-level water security, to produce fine-scale studies after the study. There is need to invest in climate-resilient water infrastructure. So in conclusion, Zimbabwe is experiencing spatial temporal variability in groundwater storage influenced by population pressure and precipitation. Satellite remote sensing is cost-effective tool for mapping water security in the Global South, considering that in Global South it's a limited resource setting. So satellite remote sensing, it provides a cost-effective way to monitor water. And then bivariate mapping provides a powerful tool for identifying water insecurity hotspots, giving a clearer picture of the populations which are most vulnerable to water insecurity. So our results support evidence-based policy sustainable groundwater management in Zimbabwe. I would like to acknowledge our host institution, Lupane State University, and the organizers of this conference, and the different free data and software providers who made this research possible. We thank you.
Thank you, Prudence, for recording this presentation. I see that you are back online, and we'll request you to hang around. We have another presentation, and I'm sure there are many questions on this topic. Our last presentation is by Apoorva Vaz from our own CEPT, and her presentation along with Professor Anil Kumar Roy, her presentation is titled Circular Economy in Urban Solid Waste Management, and it is based on the case of Ahmedabad. So please go ahead, Apoorva.
India today stands at a critical transition point. Rapid urbanization, economic growth, and changing consumption patterns are putting unprecedented pressure on our cities and their resource systems. At the same time, there is growing recognition that the traditional linear model, take, make, use, dispose, is no longer viable. This is where the concept of the circular economy becomes central, particularly in urban solid waste management. This presentation explores the potential of circular economy practices through a case study of Ahmedabad, focusing on one key question: what actually enables circularity on the ground beyond policy intent and infrastructure? Circular economy is often described in terms of reducing waste, recycling materials, and recovering resources. But at its core, it's a system shift, where waste is viewed as a resource and material value is retained for as long as possible. Circular economies theoretical frameworks from industrial ecology, biomimicry, cradle to cradle, and performance economy models all point to one same principle: materials must circulate in clean, defined loops. This idea is visually captured in the butterfly diagram, which clearly distinguishes between biological and technical cycles. However, for these cycles to function, material quality becomes critical, and that depends entirely on how waste enters the system. This brings us to the Indian context. We see rapid economic growth, and the GDP has hit 4.1 trillion in 2025 with a 7.4% growth projection for 2026. Industrialization and urbanization are reshaping the nation, increasing resource demand. India faces a choice: stick to traditional waste-heavy development or pivot to a sustainable circular model. In India, circularity isn't new, it's cultural. Our traditions emphasize conservation and resource respect. This mindset gives us a head start in building a modern circular economy, especially for waste management. India generates over 62 million tons of municipal solid waste annually, with urban areas contributing the majority. Gujarat alone generates close to 4 million tons per year. What is important here is that India already recovers a significant amount of materials, especially plastic, paper, metals, e-waste, largely due to the informal sector. To address these material challenges, especially with plastics, India has steadily strengthened its policy framework, starting with the 2016 solid waste management rules mandating source segregation. The aim of this study was to assess Ahmedabad's solid waste management system through a circular economy lens, with a specific focus on the 5R strategy and material recovery networks, with 4 major objectives. One was to assess the solid waste management system in the city, to understand the 3R principles on ground, and to examine the potential of circular economy in the city, and the last one to suggest improvements in solid waste management. The methodology used here was a brief background study of primary and secondary data, network mapping of all the resources, then establish the network for 5R, and to have strategies for circular economy. Looking at Ahmedabad, the city generates 4,500 tons of municipal solid waste daily. That's 1.46 million tons yearly. It's managed by over 13,000 sanitation staff, 1,546 vehicles, 9 transfer stations in each zone, and 8 treatment plants handling 4,210 tons per day. So looking at objective 1, that is the assessing the solid waste management in the city, Ahmedabad generates approximately 4,500 metric tons of waste per day and reports nearly 100% collection and transportation of this waste. Processing infrastructure also exists, including composting, RDF, plastic processing, waste to energy, and biogas plants. However, despite this capacity, only 18% of waste is segregated at source. This is a critical disconnect. The city performs well on quantity, collection and disposal, but struggles on quality of material flow. Circular economy does not fail because of lack of infrastructure. It fails when materials enter the system already mixed. And here we can see that around 25% of waste reaches the landfill without getting treated. To understand how materials actually move, this study mapped the 3R network. I'll not go into details of it. What emerges very clearly is the informal sector is the backbone of the material recovery. Rack pickers, buyers, sorters and aggregators recover significant quantities of recyclable materials, generating substantial economic value. However, they do so after waste has been mixed, requiring manual sorting under unsafe conditions, long transport distances and unstable pricing. My survey was over 40 shops, revealed material-specific flows, value chains and processing hubs, often extending beyond city boundaries, like paper going to mills in Punjab and to Delhi out of Ahmedabad. A fieldwork was conducted in Memnagar, a locality in western Ahmedabad, involving interactions with over 20 kabadiwalas who are scrap dealer collectors and 25 pitawalas, aggregators. These interviews and observation provided first-hand insights into the economics of waste recovery, the types of materials handled, supply chains, pricing structure, and the challenges. Now we'll start with plastic waste. Plastic waste in Ahmedabad follows a decentralized informal chain. It begins with rack pickers and pastiwalas, markets and streets. These materials are then aggregated with pitawalas who perform basic segregation. From there, it travels to larger sorters and is eventually sent to recyclers in cities like Morbi or even outside Gujarat. Moving in Ahmedabad, the collection and recycling pathways for newspaper waste is remarkably organized. Even though it operates amongst entirely in informal sector, collected by kabadiwala and sorted by pitawalas. Newspapers are bundled and sent to paper mills, to Surat, Punjab, Bijapur and Delhi, again out of Ahmedabad. Cardboards take similar collection route but sent to further processing areas like Gota and Morbi. Similar goes to aluminium, has a high resale value of 100 rupees per kg, making it one of the highest collection efficiencies among recyclers. However, it is sent 300 kilometers away for recycling. Similar goes with glass. So we can see that a total weekly quantity from 7 markets come to 617.54 tons, which is estimated to generate 9.54 crores per week. The lack of local processing units reduce material recovery efficiency. If you look at the materials, except for PET bottles and glass, everything goes beyond city limits and loss of revenue of almost 9.54 crores. The gap analysis shows the failure. Upstream you see weak source segregation, midstream you see leads to material contamination, and in midstream you see the informal sector fills the gap but without infrastructure, and downstream recyclers struggle with inconsistent material quality leading to inefficiencies and landfill dependency. So coming to recommendation, I have mapped, this is the 3R and this is the 5R mapping network where we bring in informal sector formally into the value chain of the solid waste management. Here and then these are few of the strategies that we see. So the finding of this study are clear. Ahmedabad already has collection coverage, processing infrastructure, and active recycling ecosystem. What it lacks is consistent source segregation. Without segregation, recycling becomes energy intensive. Without segregation, informal workers bear the cost of inefficiency. Without segregation, circular economy remains an aspiration, not an outcome. Therefore, the most critical intervention is not new technology or capacity expansion. It is institutionalizing source segregation as non-negotiable urban infrastructure, supported by behavioral incentives and formal inclusion of the informal sector. To conclude, circular economy does not begin at the recycling plant. It begins at the point of discard. No segregation means no circular economy. A segregation, when combined with inclusion, transforms waste into resource. Thank you.
Thank you, Apoorva. With this, we have concluded our panel, and I think it was it has covered all the three main sectors of our industry, and we had Makfie talking about sea waste monitoring in Bangladesh. We had Uzra talking about grey water in regions of India. Sanitation was covered. We had Apoorva talking about solid waste, and then of course we had Agyei on the water sector in Ghana, and GIS and remote sensing for groundwater by Prudence. Now I think we can take all the questions together. We can start with the questions from any of those online. Is Makfie still online? Yes, Agyei and Prudence are all there. Any questions for the online presenters? Okay, I'll start with that. So, Prudence, can you hear me? Hello? Prudence, can you hear me? No, I think she's not available. So, okay, I can ask a question with... Hi, Prudence. Am I audible?
Hello, am I? Sorry.
So, Prudence, it seems we are having some connectivity issues on your end. Can we write to her in the chat that her network is breaking up, and we'll just come back to her after the next question?
Yes, now.
Can we write to her that her network is breaking up, and then we'll take her question once it is stable? So, meanwhile, Agyei, you talked about pipe water. Are you present online? Can you hear me? Agyei, hello? Okay, Makfie is there. So, Makfie, you talked about the IMIS in Bangladesh, and from what I understand...
sorry, Doctor,
Can we mute her?
Well, let me check from my side.
So, Makfie... Yeah, we'll do that. So, Makfie, I was asking you, so you talked about the digital public infrastructure for monitoring sea waste in Lakshmipur, and as I understand, it is part of a larger IMIS system in Bangladesh. Could you talk about, how you envision rollout of this particular module in Lakshmipur to the rest of the country, if there are any challenges that may be useful for other countries in the global south who are attempting something like this.
Yeah, okay, so yes, IMAS system, it's the rollout or scaling up in other cities. It is already being adopted in around 50 plus cities through different projects of the Department of Public Health Engineering. But as you know, maybe IMAS is already running in around 10 to 12 more cities, but the version of IMAS we are currently using in Lakshmipur is in public domain, but the other ones are in private domain. That means you cannot access those platforms. So this is kind of a new approach, and this particular, we call it base IMS, it will be used in 10 town cities of the DPHU, which is funded by the LLF and the Islamic Development Bank. So this is why this will be scale up, and then we have AIIB funded project also. So this is, and yes, certainly there is a challenge, because while initially there is a survey requirement, as I have already shown, GIS based survey, that requires a big amount of money. When it is donor funded, it is easy for the cities to adopt it, but for a city to fund this big amount is often challenging, especially for the secondary towns. Yeah.
Thank you, Makfie. Any other questions? Okay, I have been asked to conclude the session, and I'm sorry we can't take any more questions, but then the presenters are available here. The ones online can be reached through their email addresses, and we'll be sure to connect all of you if you have any questions. And with that, we'll conclude this session, and thank you everyone for coming, and we have to vacate this place for the next session now. Thank you so much.